Hey, good morning, guys. Just wanted to touch base with everybody first and say thank you for turning in your assignments. You guys have done a great job over the course of the last month turning things in. I think total for this class, I only think one or two of you have a few missing assignments. I think we're well over 90% turning everything in. So guys, keep up the good work. And we are genuinely thrilled with you, but we do miss you. I just, for my own purposes, just want to say hi to everybody. I'm going to run through the roster. Good morning, Abby. Good morning, Logan. Good morning, Curtis. Good morning, Oscar. Evan, keep turning stuff in at 4:30 a.m. That's great. Whenever you get it in, get it in. Emily, hello. Hannah, Jacob, Chrislyn, hello. Austina, Maggie, Madison, Emily, Evan, keep turning stuff in, buddy. You turned in a bunch of stuff yesterday, and that's much appreciated. Joe, hello, buddy. Andrew, how are you? Dalton, Emily, Jared, hey, Big Donnie, how are you? Stay awake. Micah, Gavin, Jesse, and Jacob. Guys, how are you? I hope you all are doing well. Guys, I'm only going to take about 20 or 25 minutes of your time because everything that I'm presenting to you today will be on Google Classroom. All the questions, everything that you see up here today, you will have access to. I just wanted to go over some of it with you. That way, when you do get to some of this work, if you have questions, hopefully by me going through this, I will answer any questions that you might have. All right, guys, this is the last unit, social studies unit for the year, and that's geography. This is going to take probably about 3.5 to 4 weeks. So I'm just going to give you kind of an introductory lesson, and we're going to keep a couple of things in mind as we start this, because I know geography, most of you have not had geography of any kind since you were in the 6th grade. While we do incorporate that throughout all your middle school and even a little bit some this year, as far as an actual geography unit, this is the first time you've had it since 6th grade. So I'm going to do a couple little overview things, but in mind I also want you to remember a couple of questions. We're going to be able to explain the relationship between the physical environment of where you're living at or where populations are and why they are in those particular areas. And we're going to do that at the local level, which means the state of Kentucky. We're going to do it at the national level, of course, the United States. And we're also going to look at a world map. And I'm going to show you populations there. And there's a common theme in all three of these on why people populate where they do. The other thing is, and it kind of correlates with this first one, is evaluate reasons for spatial distributions of human populations. We're going to talk about Kentucky and globally. That ties right into what I just said previously. It's going to be why people are where they are, and what economic factors that plays into things, and what job opportunities and things like that, why they're created from a geography standpoint. And then the main thing, that'll probably be the first thing we hit today, are the 5 themes of geography. What does incorporation of geography mean? So first off, what I want to tell you is, what is geography? Okay, what is geography? Well, that geography part we've always talked about. Geography, the world. So essentially geography is the study of the earth or our home, or also it is anything that can be mapped. That's what geography is the study of our earth or anything that can be mapped. All right, so I'm going to go back here. I'm going to kind of go back and forth to present some of these slides to you, and then we'll take a look at some of the maps. All right, so let me get this started. And guys, also, I want you to know while you're sitting here listening to me, this PowerPoint is about 32 slides, I believe. We're only covering the first 13 in here today, all right? Some of these are going to go by pretty quick. Some of them will be a little bit more detailed about. So what I just said, what is geography? That will be one of your questions. Here is your answer. It is the study of Earth or our home or anything that can be mapped. Either one of those definitions will work just fine. All right? And I kind of touched on that just with those introductory levels. Is guys, geography mixes up physical and human aspects of our world. Okay, so what does that mean? Just what I talked about. What physical aspects of land, where you live, make up the human aspect. And when I say human aspect, what do you hear all the time when you hear the news, listen to the news, read the news, whatever? In today's time, guys, that deals more with jobs and the opportunities. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the maps, and I'm able to actually give you a visual interpretation of what I'm talking about. And it also goes right along with that last point of geography shows the relationship between people and the environment. And guys, I will go ahead and say this too. I apologize if I'm going a little bit too fast. It's because I cannot, I can't see your little hands or faces to see if you have questions or need further explanation on that stuff. So when I do post this in Google Comment or in Google Classroom, that comment section, you guys have done a good job asking questions or needing clarification. Continue that on this, all right? I know Ms. Lukatis and myself are checking this frequently. We see this frequently. And guys, I don't think it's been longer than a couple of hours where we've given you guys feedback. Evan, that's for you, because I know you usually ask your questions at 3:45, 4 o'clock in the morning while we're asleep, buddy. So we get back to you, though. So what is you hear the word geography, what's a geographer? It's someone that analyzes the earth, okay? And from many different points, like I've already mentioned. And this is what I personally feel like, and if you look at the standards, it talks a lot about the physical environment and the spatial distributions. Guys, you can't talk about that. We just finished that economics lesson that Ms. Lukatis taught, looking at the stock market, looking at trades and goods and how those things work. Guys, this correlates. This is why we teach it in this order, is because you cannot talk about the economy, trading goods, shipping things, whatever the case may be, without analyzing the earth and where we're at. And I'm going to go ahead and give you one big clue to something that you're going to hear throughout this unit, and that is water. All right? Water. Okay, water. What does that have to do? Well, we have oceans, we have rivers, we have lakes. When we look at the maps, find those common themes on where populations are and how goods can be grown, transported, whatever the case may be. That has everything to do with geography, and especially how people map it out and look at translations, or what a geographer does. These are the big areas that we're talking about. This is the first thing I really want to get into, the 5 common themes, or the 5 themes of geography. And there are 5 different ways that we look at the earth. We always look at where are things located, why are they located there. We talk about all these things, all right? And before we get into it, we have to look at these. This is what I already talked about. Oceans, plant life, landforms, people, and how the earth and its people affect each other. And that rolls us right into the 5 themes. All right, so pay attention to this. All right, the 5 themes, the first one is location. All right, you hear people all the time. I know a couple of you in the classroom here, your parents are realtors. All right, if you were to talk to them right now, the biggest thing they tell you, and especially old timers like your grandparents or my grandparents, that was something growing up you always heard, and they said it 3 times: location, location, location. All right, that has to deal with, as I go back into the economics of things, location, location, location. If you're in a particular area and a particular spot that has certain resources like water, like materials, like natural resources, any of those things, guys, that not only does that help increase value, but it creates opportunity for people, for jobs, any of those things. And that goes right back into the place. Geographers study the physical and human features of a location. All right, we talked about that. I've already mentioned that. What was the big one I talked about? Okay, it was water, right? The ocean, rivers, lakes. As you go through, you're going to see, if you really get into it, most areas that are densely populated, even if you look at Madison County, guys, we have water that helps us with everything from our basic needs, whether it be our drinking water, whether it be with shipping, transportation. What do I mean by that? Waterways in Madison County. Well, when you cross in from, let's say we're going to Lexington, what do we cross every time when we go up I-75, or if you take the old road through Clay's Ferry? Guys, what do you cross? You cross the Kentucky River. All right, maybe not so much now, but I know in the years past, guys, that has been a very big outlet for us transporting goods, for farmers being able to trade, to ship to other parts of the state. I know it's a lot easier now with all the trucks that we have, but also if you look at train routes, all those things, guys, most of them went along waterways. All right. So you have to continually think about those things and how that affects us. All right, and then the human environment, and interaction. All right, geographers study how people affect the shape of physical characteristics. All right, guys, that's just kind of a fancy little definition there, but that goes along with everything I've already talked about. All right. Everything from a geographic standpoint is physical. All right. What boundaries do you have to cross? What's your surroundings? What things do you have around you that can sustain you or keep you going, or a group of people going? All right. Movement helps explain how people, goods, and ideas get from one place to another. I've already touched on that. All right. It's easier now, and it has been for, especially the last, we'll say 100 years. But our roadways make things a lot more easy. But we have to think of movement and how we use that. Waterways. Guys, what was one of the big boundaries? We started the school year off talking about the founding of the country. Okay, and then as we worked our way in, we talked just a little bit about the railroad systems and some of that. What was one of the big things that made travel difficult or movement difficult at the time? Mountains. Okay? Well, could you put a train and go straight up a mountain and go right over it? Absolutely not. They had to dig. They had to either blast through them, or in most cases, especially when goods were being shipped, especially by train, they had to build around, or they had to actually explore those areas to find where valleys were to be able to lay those tracks through. So movement is a big key when it comes to geography and getting those goods. And then the regions. This is something we've talked about, regions. We talked a lot about regions when we were dealing with the Electoral College and voting and those things, and how different parts of the country have maybe a different type of, even though we're all Americans, we all have different types of cultures. We have different types of kind of belief systems a little bit. It's the same thing in geography, regions, all right? Because let's think about the layout. When you guys go on vacation, let's say you all go to the beach or you go to Florida. Do you see a lot of mountains? Do you see a lot of hills, rolling rivers, things like that? No. What do you see when you go to Florida? You see a couple of things. You see beaches, you see ports. You don't even realize you're seeing ports necessarily when you're going through. But you see places where they ship things. Different regions call for different types of transportation, goods that can be moved and transported. And then also it says here I've got population or history from one place to another. So I'm going to use us as an example again for the state of Kentucky. Who has a larger population? Us or Florida? The state of Kentucky or the state of Florida? The state of Florida has a larger population. Yes, because the weather's warmer and there's nice sandy beaches. We all get that. But if you want to look at from an economic standpoint of things, there's a lot more, I wouldn't necessarily say opportunity, even though there probably is, but there is larger markets for economic growth when it comes from, if you've got the Gulf Coast and the Atlantic Ocean that surrounds you, what do you think you have there? You have probably a lot of fishing. You're able to you also have a lot of factories in Florida who can make goods, but not only make those goods, what do they have access to? They have access to loading them up on ships, freighters, whatever the case may be, and shipping them all over the world. And you can look up, and we'll look at the map here in just a second, and you will see the number of larger cities that are along coasts, not only throughout our country, but throughout the world, as opposed to inside of where they live. All right, so location, I've already talked about that a little bit. And there are two ways. Absolute location, that talks about the exact position on the earth where you're at, and then relative location explains where a place is by describing places it's near. All right, does that make sense to you? Everything I've already talked about and discussed already is in these two when I was talking about location. Your absolute location. Where are you at right now? All right, I am in a classroom at the second floor at Madison Southern High School. Relative location, well, I am somewhere on Glades Road, pretty close to a McDonald's and the Boone Square Mini Mall. All right, does that make sense? I'm giving you a general location. Think of relative location kind of as a general area because it explains places I'm near. And my absolute location, I gave you, if you want the exact location, second floor, Madison Southern High School, room 223. That is my absolute location. All right? Place, I've already discussed that one just a little bit. You can read that one for yourself because I've already kind of talked about all these in detail. Let's see, human environment, movement. This is something we're going to talk a lot about. It explains, and I've already discussed this once, but I want to kind of connect this with that last unit. All right, that last unit, Miss Lukaitis had you all track a stock on, well, actually 3 stocks, and track that over the last month. All right, you guys did a really good job talking about. And here's the funny part about doing that assignment. I'm getting off track just a little bit, but I'll tie it back in. Is you guys have looked at a historic downturn with our coronavirus, COVID-19, whatever you guys want to talk about there. But you've tracked stocks at one of the most historic times in our country. I know you're dealing with it right now, so you guys may not look at it from a historical standpoint, but we will look back at this probably 30, 40, 50 years from now, even after I'm gone, and we'll see that how it affected not only the people, but how it affected goods, and how we were able, this is the big one, is the ideas of moving from one place to another. Has that been affected right now? Absolutely. Okay, we can't go out and do some of the same things that we did a month ago. So that has affected, not from a geography standpoint, but it has affected us locally from the aspect of how our economy has been affected, how we can move or ship goods, maybe that we have right here in the state of Kentucky. All right. Regions, we talked about that a little bit already when we talked about Florida as compared to Kentucky. And guys, that's where I'm going to kind of stop you right there, and then I want to go into looking at our maps. All right. I know this probably, let's see if I can expand this just a little bit for you. Guys, this map is going to be available, and you can do the same thing I'm doing right now. All right. So one thing I want you to think about is as you look at your map, look at all these dots. These are the major cities throughout the world. All right. And I know you can't read these, but this kind of goes along with everything that I've said. If you look at all these dots, you know, here's the United States. That's New York, Washington, D.C., that's Atlanta. It's a little bit in, but there's always a few exceptions, but it's still pretty close to what? Water. All right? If you look throughout, Africa and Asia are the two big ones that I want you to see. All right? Because not from the standpoint is yes, they are from a culture standpoint, from a belief system, they are very different than what we are. But what's the common theme that we see? A lot of their civilizations, a lot of their dense populations right through here are what? They're on coastlines. Okay? Easy access to resources. Easy access to be able to ship to other parts of the country. Okay, something you hear all the time. If I flip over, if I were to take my shoes off right now and pull that little tag up, where's it probably going to be made from? It's going to be made in one of two places. Probably China or Vietnam. Well, if you look at those areas, let's look at China here. A lot of these things, that's Beijing right here. A lot of these areas are in water where they can make these goods, ship them out at a quick rate. We look at Vietnam and some of those, they're right up in here in these water areas where they have access to resources. Their geography, their location relative to geography is a very big indicator of their economics and how much money can be made or moved through their particular area. As you go through Africa, all right? But what I want you to really understand here, and why I'm saying this to you, is you see all these dots that are fairly close to water. Even if they're not on the water, they're very close to water. All right? All these areas. Why is that? Because when you go to the middle, you don't have as many resources. And I'm going to explain that a little bit further because there are exceptions to the rule. And there is an exception right here in the state of Kentucky that I'll talk about here in just a second. But guys, remember in 6th grade, when you first started geography, when you first started learning social studies, what was the first area that you talked about? It was Mesopotamia, which is present-day Iran and Iraq, those areas right there. When those civilizations first started to build, where did they build between? The Tigris and the Euphrates River. Do you think there's a connection there? They were able to sustain agriculture through the water that they got through those two rivers. They were able to what goods they did have, and when they started to branch out and use things like the Persian Gulf or even transport through Egypt, a lot of times we had those shipping records. They would come through and they would come into Egypt. They would come all through the Middle East. But it was started because of their geographic location between two major rivers. All right? I hope that makes sense to you. All right? Again, if you have questions, comments, you don't understand, or you need me to clarify something, guys, that's what that comment section is for on Google Classroom. And then one thing I want you to understand here, before I give you your assignment, is let's look at the state of Kentucky. All right? The one thing I do like about the social studies aspect of what they want you guys to learn, they want you to learn something locally and how we can apply everything that we're going to talk about locally. All right? If you look at all these areas in the state of Kentucky, notice they have Richmond here, Lexington, Frankfort, and then let's look along the border here between, right, this would be West Virginia. What is this? What is this natural border we have right here? Does anybody know? Give me a couple seconds. Somebody say it yourself. It's the Ohio River, right? The Ohio River. Every time how many of you gone to Cincinnati? If you've got family in Ohio, whatever the case may be. If you go to Louisville and you go up through Indiana, you're all crossing the Ohio River. All right? If you will notice, our two largest populations is Louisville, which is our largest population, and our next one is Lexington. Both populations of our largest are close to rivers. You think? Let's think about everything I've already talked about. All right, it is all because access to not only shipping, but if you think about your factories and how a lot of factories work, operate, they use, I can't even think of the exact words, but they use water or hydroelectricity, that's it. They use hydroelectricity to power a lot of their factories for industry as manufacturing, all right? You have to think about those things. Guys, why is Richmond listed here? Richmond's not that big of a city. It is a top, I think we talked about this earlier with some of the other teachers. It's a top 15, may even be a top 10 city for population in the state of Kentucky. But guys, that Kentucky River that runs right here, guess what? Just south of it is Richmond. You think that makes sense? Absolutely. All right? Radcliffe, Owensboro, which is on the Ohio River, Paducah, which is on the Ohio River, that touches right into one of the largest rivers in the world, the Mississippi River. That's why they have a large population. So then, let's think about those outliers. And that's what I was talking about just a minute ago. There's always exceptions to the rule, but it still has to do with geography. One thing that they don't have is right here in this little corner of the state is Pikeville. Pikeville has grown exponentially over the course of the last 70, 80 years. What do you think? What geographic area or what landform would make that happen? What do they have in far eastern Kentucky that everybody knows about? The Appalachian Mountains, right? What resource has sustained eastern Kentucky for well over 100 years? What is it? It's coal, right? Okay? Even though you don't have any major cities here, if you look kind of how the state is, this isn't the best map to show you that, but guys, from about here over, there are pockets of people throughout eastern Kentucky. Why is that? It's because the geography of that area, or coal, allowed for people to settle, find jobs, and work. And then, like I had said, a lot of it would get shipped up through Ashland, and guess what? It was moved either by train, or in a lot of cases, it was moved throughout the rest of the United States by traveling it through the Ohio River until it got down to about Paducah, and then it would hit the Mississippi River, and they would go through different parts of the South and the North. Okay? So I want you to understand geography. Guys, that is a very broad overview, I know. All right? But one thing I want you to do here, this is your assignment for today. Your assignment for today is nothing too difficult, but everything here, all the questions that I have presented you, I'm going to read them to you and go over a couple of them with you, is I want you all to answer them, but everything is in this PowerPoint, in those first 13 slides. Everything. I took the questions out myself and made them yesterday. All right? This will be attached. Okay? I've got, I think it's, 4 total questions? Oh, yes. 4 total questions. A couple of them are, one of them is just listing, and then the other 3 are short explanations. If you will see, if you'll notice, none of these questions are over 3 or 4 lines long. All right? But some of them you do, I do want you to explain yourself. The first one, guys, it was right there in plain black and white. List the 5 themes of geography. You don't necessarily have to explain them. Just go through that PowerPoint, find those 5 themes of geography and list them. All right? The very first thing I did is number 2. In your own words. In your own words, what is geography? Explain it. Okay? If you write the definition, I'll probably give you credit. I might not give you the full piece of credit for it, but try to come up with your own explanation. All right? Unless you're somewhere way off in outer space with this, you will get credit. Give me a term for or give me a definition of geography in your own terms. Okay, the last 2. Number 3 here, it says choose one of the 5 themes. Choose one of the 5 themes of geography and describe which may influence where and why people live in particular areas today. Guys, throughout this whole little lesson right here, in the last 20 minutes or so, everything I have discussed ties back into this question. All right? You should be able to come up with it. Also, remember, I'm going to say this. This is kind of a dead giveaway here. Of those 5 themes, where and why people live in particular areas. Think about everything I just talked about. Why? How they move resources, how they transport things, where they set up populations. One big thing, okay? One big resource or geographic kind of landform, landscape, I guess you would say, is the reason why. And then number 4, how does geography affect the areas of Kentucky? That's the very last thing I talked about. How does geography affect the areas of Kentucky that are most populated? Okay? I even gave you a little clue right here at the bottom. An example, think about access to water, natural resources, and landforms. All right? Guys, I think everything right there is pretty self-explanatory. Everything right there is pretty self-explanatory. If you have questions, look through those first 13 slides. Everything is there, and I'm attaching both the world map, I'm attaching the world map, and the Kentucky map, and the map of Kentucky, I should say, that are there. All right? Guys, again, we miss you. If you need us, call the school, email us. Like I said at the very start of this, we have, Miss Lukatis and I have I don't think anybody's gone longer than maybe a couple of hours without getting responded to. All right? Keep turning your work in. We've been very proud and impressed with what you guys are doing right now. I know this is probably not the most, I don't know, I don't want to say effective because you guys have actually been doing your work, but this is probably not the most common way that you guys have learned. So we've taken that into consideration, and if you need us, please, 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 I can't reiterate it. Call the school, 625-6148, email us, whatever the case may be. Somebody will get back to you. All right, guys, we miss you, and we'll see you soon.